The story of Odysseus is a topic found in ancient Greek mythology and is detailed extensively in Homer's epic, The Odyssey. Odysseus is a Greek hero who participated in the Trojan War and after the war attempts to return home. The epic narrates his adventures, struggles with the gods, and his years-long journey. The story of Odysseus is considered one of the most famous and influential works of ancient literature and has had a profound impact on Western literature.
When Odysseus and his men arrived at the island of the Cyclopes, they entered the cave of the giant Polyphemus. Exhausted and weary, they were unaware that they would not be welcomed by Polyphemus. Polyphemus suddenly appeared, devouring some of the soldiers and taking the rest captive. However, thanks to his cleverness, Odysseus begins to speak with Polyphemus and, catching him off guard, blinds him with a spear. He then manages to escape with his men. Odysseus and his men boarded their ship and continued on their journey. The god of the winds, Aeolus, gifts Odysseus a bag containing all the winds to help him on his journey home. This way, they would be able to make faster progress. However, due to the curiosity of his men, the bag is opened, releasing the winds and dragging the ship back into the heart of the storms. After days of raging storms, Odysseus's ship resumes its journey. Odysseus spotted the island of the Laestrygonians, and they entered the island to rest and replenish their supplies. No sooner had they set foot on land than the giant man-eating Laestrygonians attacked Odysseus' fleet, destroying most of the ships. Only Odysseus' ship escaped. This event marked one of the most terrifying moments of their journey, resulting in a great loss. Odysseus and his men, filled with disappointment, continued on their way. Odysseus and his men next discover an island of breathtaking beauty, almost like a piece of paradise. Upon landing, the sorceress Circe greets these uninvited guests. Odysseus tries to explain their situation, but the sorceress turns his men into pigs. Odysseus calls upon Hermes for help, and with his aid, he renders Circe powerless. Circe then restores Odysseus' men to their human form. She hosts them for a year before they continue on their journey once again. Following Circe's instructions, Odysseus travels to the land of the dead, Hades. His goal is to speak with the spirit of the wise Tiresias and seek guidance on the way home. At last, he manages to speak with Tiresias' spirit. This encounter helps Odysseus continue on the right course. They resume their long years of sea voyages. Odysseus and his men are forced to sail past the dangerous island of the Sirens. The Sirens, with their enchanting beauty, begin to sing. Odysseus quickly has his men plug their ears with beeswax and orders them to tie him to the mast of the ship so they do not fall victim to the Sirens' mesmerizing songs. In this way, they manage to sail away from the island of the Sirens, whose beauty and deadly music could have doomed them.
Odysseus and his crew face the six-headed monster Scylla on one side and the devouring whirlpool Charybdis on the other. The only way forward is through them. Scylla descends from the cliffs and snatches several crew members. Despite their efforts to escape, they cannot break free from the monster's grasp. Charybdis's massive whirlpool begins to pull the ship in. The crew rows with all their strength, but the sea is ready to swallow them. Odysseus chooses to steer closer to Scylla to save his crew. He knows this means losing some of his men. The ship escapes Charybdis, but it sails forward with the loss of friends weighing heavily. Odysseus silently watches the sea, feeling the burden of their sacrifice. Odysseus and his men arrive at the sunlit island of Thrinacia. The island is lush and peaceful, with Helios's sacred cattle grazing undisturbed. Odysseus warns his men not to touch the sacred cattle, reminding them that they would face dire consequences if they did. The men, desperate with hunger, gaze longingly at the grazing cattle. Their patience begins to waver. Under the cover of darkness, the men secretly slaughter the cattle, unable to resist their hunger despite Odysseus's warnings. From the heavens, Helios watches in fury as his sacred cattle are killed. He demands retribution from Zeus. Zeus gathers dark clouds and unleashes a storm in revenge for Helios. Lightning strikes and massive waves hit the ship. The ship is shattered amidst massive waves and lightning strikes. The men are thrown into the sea where they all perish. Odysseus, clinging to the wreckage of his ship, drifts alone in the sea, the sole survivor of the storm. Shipwrecked, Odysseus washes ashore on the lush, beautiful island of Ogygia. The goddess Calypso watches from afar. Calypso offers Odysseus food and shelter. Though physically comfortable, his heart longs for home. Odysseus sits by the sea, lost in thought, longing for his home and family in Ithaca. Calypso offers Odysseus immortality, but he refuses, determined to return home. The gods inform Calypso that she must let Odysseus go. Hermes delivers the message from Mount Olympus. Calypso, sorrowful, agrees to let Odysseus go and helps him prepare a raft for his journey. Odysseus sets sail from Ogygia on a small raft, as Calypso watches from the shore. Odysseus faces the vast, endless sea alone. His journey continues. A weary Odysseus arrives at the peaceful shores of Phaeacia, with King Alcinous's grand palace visible in the distance. King Alcinous warmly welcomes Odysseus into his grand palace, offering hospitality in a magnificent setting. Odysseus sits at a grand banquet, feasting with the king and people of Phaeacia amidst music and celebration. Odysseus recounts his adventures to the king and people, who listen in awe and sympathy. King Alcinous provides Odysseus with a ship to return to Ithaca, as preparations are made at the docks. Odysseus boards the ship, and the people of Phaeacia wave farewell from the shore as the ship sets sail. The ship sails peacefully toward Ithaca on the horizon, with Odysseus looking ahead, eager to return home. A close-up of Odysseus's face, showing his determination and longing as he nears Ithaca, with the sea and home in the background. Odysseus, disguised as a beggar, steps onto the familiar but worn shores of Ithaca. The goddess Athena appears to Odysseus, transforming him into a beggar to conceal his identity from his enemies. Odysseus, in ragged clothes, begins his journey home, unnoticed by those around him. Odysseus reunites with the loyal swineherd Eumaeus, who welcomes him warmly into his humble home. Odysseus, sitting by the fire with Eumaeus, reflects on his return and the steps he must take. Eumaeus and Odysseus quietly discuss their strategy to reclaim the palace. Odysseus sharpens a knife, preparing for the upcoming confrontation with a determined expression. Odysseus stands outside, gazing toward the palace as twilight falls, preparing for the final confrontation. Disguised as a beggar, Odysseus approaches his son after years apart. Telemachus, filled with shock and joy, recognizes him immediately. They embrace, sharing a heartfelt moment of joy and relief. Together, they discuss their strategy to defeat the suitors, with Telemachus looking on with deep loyalty and respect, the bond between them evident. Seated quietly by the fire, they review their plans in secrecy. Preparing for the impending battle, their faces are set with determination. Side by side, they gaze toward the palace, where a new beginning awaits. Odysseus, disguised as a beggar, steps into the grand hall of his palace. No one suspects his true identity. The suitors struggle to string Odysseus's great bow as Penelope watches anxiously. Odysseus steps forward in disguise. The suitors mock him, but he strings the bow effortlessly. As he releases his arrow, Odysseus's disguise fades, revealing his true identity. The suitors, realizing the true king has returned, are filled with shock and fear. Odysseus battles the suitors fiercely, using his bow and sword in the palace hall. Telemachus stands beside his father, fighting the remaining suitors together. Odysseus and Telemachus stand victorious in the empty hall, with Penelope watching in joy. Odysseus and Penelope embrace in the palace of Ithaca, symbolizing the triumph of loyalty over the years. Odysseus and Penelope sit peacefully together, surrounded by symbols of their life in Ithaca, celebrating love, loyalty, and victory. Odysseus respectfully declines the god's offer of immortality, choosing instead to live a mortal life. Odysseus, surrounded by family, continues his life as king, filled with peace and fulfillment.